Chapter 13. Tension. Jesse looked over the railing into the cabin below. Nervous energy had filled the cabin from the moment he'd woke up. The trial began today, and everyone was on edge. Skye rushed around the kitchen, preparing breakfast before they left. It wasn't her day to make the morning meal, but Dylan and Wade needed to check the traps before they went to court. He and Sue Ellen sat in the loft. The last time Jesse had spent this much time up here was when Dylan and Wade had gone to battle. Skye had been with him, and the two had spent the entire day worrying about the brothers. Last night, Dylan had helped push things around to make some room for a real bed. Since Jesse had promised Sue Ellen his room, he needed somewhere better than the couch. The crack of eggshells and eggs sizzling made its way up to the loft. "Mom," Jesse said as he hung over the rough wood banister, "remember not to cook mine too long." "Yes, dear." Skye's tone was overly patient. It was his regular request even though she'd only overcooked his eggs once. However, in Jess's opinion, even once was too much. Sue Ellen pursed her lips. In a hissing whisper, she said, "You call her mom?" "She ain't our mama." Jesse shrugged, then straightened some of his model cars he'd brought up, not wanting to upset his sister. But Sue Ellen did not let it go. She wagged her finger at him, her voice becoming fierce as she added, "Our mama wouldn't like that." "Well, she ain't here." He could see from her expression that it wasn't going to be enough. "I don't hardly remember our mama. And from what I do, she wasn't all that good to us. Still, she was our mama." She stabbed her finger toward the kitchen below. "That one ain't. She's mine." Jesse was insistent. This was something his sister would need to accept. With fingers like iron, Sue Ellen grabbed Jess's shoulder and shook it. "She ain't." Jesse looked at her hand as it squeezed tighter and tighter. He slowly removed it and placed her hand on her knee. Sue Ellen didn't know how things were supposed to go. "We don't do that here, Sue Ellen." Her eyes narrowed. "You're my big sister, but there are some things you don't know, so I want you to listen." Jesse sighed when she made an exaggerated eye roll, then continued. "Mom, Skye, has saved my life more'n once. Even got herself almost killed saving me. That is what a parent does for their kid. That's how much she loves me. She earned the right to be my mom. Nobody else ever did that." When Sue Ellen tried to turn away, Jesse moved with her. "Mama never did nothing to stop bad things from happening to me. I might not remember much, but I remember that." Jesse pointed down to Skye. "That woman, she's my mom. So get used to it. And if you're smart, you'll let her be your mom too." Sue Ellen said nothing but pushed her lip out and crossed her arms. "Sue Ellen, I don't know how it was for you at Grandma's, but here, you don't have to worry about nothing. Dylan, Wade, and Skye believe in taking care of kids. Not beating them or using them as labor. I mean, I do my part, but I have lots of fun too. It's good here, the first good I've ever had." Still, Sue Ellen wasn't persuaded. "It's real good here," he repeated. "Just give it a while, you'll see." Before Sue Ellen could answer, Skye called them to breakfast. The girl jumped up and ran down the stairs with Jesse right behind her, then immediately plopped herself at the table. Skye had already added an extra chair, but that wasn't where Sue Ellen sat. As Jesse filled the cups with water, he said, "That's Dylan's seat." "It's fine," Skye said quickly. "The guys aren't back yet, and I'm sure Dylan won't mind anyway." Glancing around the table, Jesse dropped into his chair. He liked his seat between the two men and across from his mom. Any place that Sue Ellen took was going to mess that up. As if she could feel his discomfort, Skye stopped on her way to lay the plate of toast on the table to give him a quick hug, then kissed the top of his head. He looked up at her with a smile. "Yep, it was real good here."
Skye felt the tension between the two siblings as soon as they entered the room. The two had been glued to each other's side since they saw each other, and a tiff was bound to happen sooner rather than later. After hugging Jesse, Skye walked over to Sue Ellen. While asking the girl if she needed anything, Skye laid her hand on Sue Ellen's shoulder only to have her jerk away. So, Sue Ellen didn't like to be touched. At least, right now. Perhaps she had also been physically abused, although if Sky remembered correctly, Jessie had said their father had never touched the girl. But Sky remembered her one conversation with their grandmother. She hadn't seemed to be a very loving person. The old woman had said boys needed to be beat but hadn't included girls in that statement. However, she'd clearly stated that she took Sue Ellen in to help around the house. And who knew what she had gone through since the ag flu had begun? Sky tried to strike up a conversation with Sue Ellen only to get shrugs or mumbles in return. The girl seemed to get more and more irritated, so Sky stopped. In a final effort of kindness, Sky smiled and said, "If you need any help with your hair before going, let me know. I have some products in the bathroom." "Geez, lady." Sue Ellen yelled at Sky, "I know how to do my own hair, I ain't an infant. Just leave me alone." Dylan and Wade walked in just as Sue Ellen went off. In the quiet room, the only sound was their boots hitting the floor as they removed them. Sky and Dylan exchanged a glance as he started toward the table. Sky shook her head. Sue Ellen was unaware she'd broken their most important rule. No angry words. Angry words led to angry actions, and they weren't tolerated in this house. Jesse's face turned red as he held himself back from yelling more than his sister's name. "Sue Ellen." Sky patted the boy's arm, letting him know she would take care of it. Sue Ellen looked around her, taking in the mood of the room, and sunk deeper into her chair, crossing her arms. "Whatever." Sky dragged a chair closer to Sue Ellen and sat. When the girl moved to shoot out of the room, Sky asked, "Do you really think you're going to make it out of here?" Sue Ellen's eyes widened, and she settled back into her chair. "Sue Ellen, we have a few rules in this house. One of the most important is no yelling. It won't be tolerated." Sky rolled her shoulders to release the tightness in them. "I wish today could be about welcoming you to this family. Unfortunately, we have to get through this trial. It's a tough day for all of us. So, today is about the conviction of 3 evil men who terrorized and attempted to murder your brother and me along with many other people. It is a very important trial." Sue Ellen somehow slid even further down in her chair and repeated, "Whatever." Sky sighed. Whatever is this? You can come along with us and act like a mature human being by supporting your brother, or you can stay here by yourself. Whatever. But if you decide to come along with us, be aware that your attitude will be staying behind." Sue Ellen made a little sound in the back of her throat. Sky's tone brooked no argument. "I need a verbal response of acceptance if you are going with us." Sue Ellen sent questioning gaze to Jesse. "Oh, she means it," he said. The girl wiggled herself upright in her seat. "I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking. I'd like to go to support Jesse." Almost as one, the 3 adults nodded their approval. Wade loudly clapped his hands together. "I sure am hungry. What do you got cooking over here?" Dylan went straight for Sky, giving her a quick kiss and a hug. He grabbed her hand and pulled her along behind him as she giggled and pretended to resist. Not allowing her to escape, he sat and forced her onto the chair beside him. "You just sit here, darlin'. We'll take care of everything else." Sky squeezed his hand and obeyed. It was the diversion they had needed, not only from Sue Ellen's outburst, but to avoid thinking of the upcoming events of the day. Everyone laughed at Dylan's antics except for Sue Ellen, who sat quietly watching, a slight squint dimming her bright blue eyes.